All righty, welcome to the Fall River Conservation Meeting, held Monday, February 1st, 2021 at 5:30 through Zoom meeting. We'll start with roll call. Lewis Fair,
Here.
just say Andy Liss,
Yep.
Jim Hornsby,
Here.
Golter Emerald,
Here.
John Brand here. Everyone's in attendance. Pursuant to the open meeting laws, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit this meeting through any medium.
Okay.
Attendees are therefore advised that such a recording or transmissions
Poster,
are being
but there
made
was
whether
one that
perceived
people were gonna join in just in case.
by those present or deemed acknowledged and permissible. Okay, first on the agenda
Okay. All right.
is
Yep.
amended order of conditions NOI SE-24-728. Owner applicant is TM Crowley and Associate. Project location is 64 Stevens Street. Assessor's map is E-27-4. This is continued from January 4th meeting 2021. Do we want to open up with, is Dan Aguirre here?
No,
I see John's here.
no, Dan will not be joining us. I just talked to him.
Do we have any updates on this?
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, we have a request from TM Crowley to postpone, or rather to continue this until the next meeting. And John Marchion's here. I guess he could just explain the reason for that.
So good evening, John Marchand from Farland Corp. So we've been kind of working with Dan and his client, trying to find a resolution that that kind of works for them. We've got a few options that we're considering, involving possibly piping some of the discharge onto their property, obtaining an easement. So we're just trying to work with the attorneys. The attorneys are involved in trying to figure out the best way to go about that, and what kind of route they would prefer us to go. Whether, where they'd like us to discharge, basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any harm in postponing or continuing until the next meeting.
No, neither do I. Thanks for the update, Mr. Marchand. Can I have a motion to table this to the March 1st meeting?
I'll make the motion. I'll second that motion.
Okay, can I have a vote? Lewis?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Mr. Hornsby?
Yes.
Galter?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Vote passes 5-0, table to March 1st. Next on the agenda is further review the enforcement order issued regarding 57 Frederick Street and review the status of requirement restoration plan, continued from January 4th, 2021 meeting. Discussion 1/2021 letter from Attorney Jane Marsh on behalf of Linda Baptista, owner of 57 Frederick Street, we received. So open that up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I suggest that maybe we ask Attorney Marsh to just summarize the points of his letter for discussion? He's frozen.
Jim, you muted.
That's what we're gonna do. Mr. Marsh, could you,
There you go.
do you like to?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. For the record, James Marsh, here on behalf of Linda Batista, 57 Frederick Street. We
Mr.
did receive the enforcement order from the Concom, and we wanted to put something in writing so we could have a response. What has happened out there for some time is a steady increase of stormwater flow onto her property, coming from this 12-inch diameter culvert that runs under Bronson Street. when she first bought the property, she had an existing lawn area that was in the back of her house. And over time, as I mentioned, the water has increased from the resource area towards her home. We contacted the city sometime back in 2017, made them aware of our problem. To date, we've had no response, at least in the case of assisting us in remediating this issue. We did hire a engineer, Rich Rione from Prime Engineering, who went out there and did a site walk and basically explained to us what's happening. This increased stormwater flow from the development that was put in by Jamie Duff. It's coming through this pipe and essentially ponding in this area behind our house because the swale isn't working. It was never designed correct. On top of that, there's been a diminishing area. Well, the BVW has been diminished because of filling on the August Street property owned by J.H. Holden. So there's less area for this water to be held. As I mentioned, the swale that is supposed to take the water out isn't functioning properly either. It's full of vegetation, junk, and other things that's just not permitting this water to come through. It's
Right.
destructive. There's also a culvert at the area at the roadway, the boulevard, that is also obstructed because there's trash and other things in there that's not allowing the water to flow freely through to Cook Pond. So essentially, my client is now having to deal with water backing up onto her property, which is now seeing cracking in her foundation, like several others on this street have also had to experience. I don't know if anyone's familiar. There is a home on Frederick that had an issue where their back deck sunk into the ground a good distance, which had to be repaired. She essentially put these stones and rocks on top of the existing lawn to essentially put up a berm to hold back the water, so it didn't affect her property, her house. She didn't extend it into the resource area, just on the area that's already been disturbed. Like I said, just the existing lawn area. We want to keep this stuff there. Otherwise, like I said, it's this water is just increasing. It's moving towards her home, unless the other problems are fixed, which is an area that's owned by the city that needs to be cleaned out, which is that area over by the boulevard, and the swale needs to be cleaned out as well, which is on private property, to allow for the water to flow freely. It has nothing to do with what she's done. And like I said in the letter, there's no filling of the resource areas. Essentially, she put this there as a reactive response to keep her home. I'm sure you all have homes and you want to protect your investment, and that's essentially what she did. And I think there's some neighbors on tonight too from Frederick that can attest to that, and they've experienced the same on their properties. And it has nothing to do with what Linda Batista has done on her property.
So Attorney Marsh, could I just to clarify that, what you're telling the commission is that the riprap or the rocks or whatever that were observed out there, and that observation was made by Paul Ferlin from our Department of Public Utilities, who's apparently not with us tonight, but you're saying that any fill or any deposit of rocks or anything else was within Mrs. Batista's property line. It did not encroach at all into the swale or into the wetland area. Is that right?
That's what I'm saying. And Linda's on, and she can attest to that.
Yes.
The client's here. She can speak to that.
Yeah, Jim, his answer was yes, that their position is that nothing was put into the wetlands or into the swale. You mentioned Mr. Rayum's report. Is that available for the commission to see? Would that be helpful in their understanding what's going on out there?
it wasn't an official report, but I would be happy to share with the commission anything I received from Rich.
That would be helpful, I would think, Mr. Chairman, if we could ask Mr. Attorney Marsh to send that over.
Bill, may I add too that Rick Newman and I actually sat down with Mr. Furland.
Okay.
I would say about a year ago, and discussed this with him about the issues with the
That would be helpful,
why
yes.
it wasn't working properly, and the area, the culvert over by the boulevard, and that needed to be addressed.
Yeah. See, I guess we're sort of at an impasse in the sense that Paul presented to us photos and a statement that, in his opinion, this was filling of the wetlands behind this 57 Frederick, which is what moved the commission to take action. And now you're telling us that that's not the case on the ground, and that you've talked to Paul in the past about this very issue. So I think we need to see whatever Mr. Rayum has provided you, and then go back to Paul and see if maybe on second look he's mistaken, or if he's insistent that he's correct. I think we've got to get him in front of the commission or have him submit something to us before we can do anything further on this, Mr. Chairman.
Bill, I think, sorry to cut in, but Bill, I think we're not at an impasse. I think we're at an opportunity here to work together, which is essentially what we've been asking the city to do with us for several years, to try to fix this problem, which is not simply Linda's property, but is everybody in this neighborhood.
Yeah, no, I think the city's aware that this whole neighborhood has a problem, and we eventually some kind of a global solution to it's got to be arrived at. But
I agree on that. Yeah, I mean, we're just by a conservation point.
I'm sorry,
I didn't catch that myself.
I didn't
John,
catch it.
we for some reason we're not able to catch you.
Oh, come on.
John, you want to repeat?
While we're waiting for John, I do have a question. Who filled the swell? Who actually filled the swell?
Mr. Amarillo, sorry, I couldn't hear you either.
Yeah, who filled the swell itself?
I don't, maybe Linda can speak to that. I'm not sure who did.
So
I was going to say, Linda, do you like to?
sure. So the swale was actually filled in back when Jamie Duff owned it. So it's been some time. And that's where the August Street, he originally had made the plans to create August Street, and the swale is on August Street.
Okay. How many?
So, yes, the developer owned it, but who filled it?
Duff, Jamie Duff did. From what my understanding was,
All right, thank you for that
around the
information.
time I moved
How
in.
long ago was that now?
That had to have been, it happened before I even moved into the house, so it had to have been 2016. I moved into the house in December of 2016. Elio would know because he had lived here longer than I have.
My name is Matthew Jubem. I'm Linda's neighbor at 45 Fresh Street. That area back there was
Okay.
that area on August
Is
was filled in on 2016 because I originally, when I bought my house in 2015, the builder sold it to me, cleared out my entire lot. Okay. I just had it surveyed this last summer, and I lost 8 feet on one side in the back and 4 feet on the other. In 2016, Jamie Duff brought at least 15, 18 wheelers worth of dump to fill August Street, and it pushed all that water to Linda and I. And when they repaired it on Whitefield Street, where they just paved the road, it created more water. So I've lost 8 feet on one side, 4 feet on the other. And if they don't fix it, it's creeping to us because the way that they're repairing the water isn't fixing the problem. It's just creating more of an issue. And I can give you the surveyor that came and surveyed my property, but I'm missing 8 feet from the last property line, the last marker on my lot, into where is now wet, and 4 on the other side of my property. So from him filling that area on August Street, which is where the proposed building units of 63 units for GH Holdings that they're trying to advertise, that they're going to have another hearing on February 18th. From them filling that is creating more of a problem. They're not addressing the trash and all the weeds and the garbage that's
Okay, thank you.
right on Bishop Boulevard.
I see, by the way, Mackenzie D'Souza, I think, texted to ask if the neighbors were going to get a chance to speak, and would she like to speak, perhaps?
John,
Yes,
can you
actually, my
put your-
daughter signed in.
Oh, okay.
Angel and Rick
Well,
Rossetti.
anybody in the D'Souza family would like to speak.
We're on 79 Frederick Street, which is on the other side of Bronson. Leo is on one side of Linder, I'm on the other.
What's your names again, please?
Angel and Ricardo Resendiz.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It appears, because that swell, if you will, that goes behind their property also goes behind ours. And agreed, since they fixed Whitefield Street, or allegedly fixed it and put some drainage in.
Thank you for that input. Is there anyone else that wants to talk to this?
What?
Don't worry.
Yeah.
We're going to try to maybe mute John for a little bit until he gets his
Yeah.
internet fixed.
Ms. Souza, go ahead.
Okay, since they seem to have repaired Whitefield Street, that swill seems to be backing up and filling in more than I've ever seen it. And we've been here for over 4 years. So I'm seeing more water now than I've ever seen.
Right.
And it's creating a rat problem.
I lost 8 feet in 5 years.
When you say you lost 8 feet, what do you mean?
So where the corner of my property line is at the back of my property, from the last time I've had it surveyed, I've lost 8 feet of property there. The water's creeping up and it's getting taken from the locusts that are back there, or the Aphrodite. Because the water,
The water is coming up, is what you're saying.
them filling August Street for where they're proposing to build this,
Okay.
the water's creeping up on my property and I've already lost 8 feet from the back.
That's what I asked. Thank you. You've answered the question. It's the water creeping.
Yes.
I was over there. I'm not quite sure where I was. It didn't look that hard that if I were 20 years younger and got 5 friends, we could clean out a lot of that swale.
Mr. Hornsby,
No.
I think that's a great point. And that's, what we suggested, I think would be helpful to try to resolve this situation, that they're having this flooding situation, because there has to be, whether it's hand pulling or clearing out of this vegetation, that's pushing the water towards the homes.
Jim, could I just to clarify, the swale as it runs behind these properties, the swale's actually owned by the abutting property owners, is that correct?
Great. I think it's on JH Holdings property.
Ah.
A portion of it. I could sit down with you and we could look at it with an aerial photo and see how it matches up with the assessor's maps to determine who owns what portion of it.
Yeah, that JH holding property, is that, I think Elios mentioned it, or somebody did, that's the property where there's a proposal before the zoning board to do some kind of a townhouse project. Is that the same property?
Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
They proposed a 63 unit development right abiding my property, and it's on the table for February 18th. And they were supposed to send a letter to all the abiding properties in regards to the variance, and I did not receive it. And my lot is abiding it.
Well, I think, I actually staff the zoning board and Patty helps me with that. I think, Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, but that matter was on for a hearing in, originally what, in December?
November 18th.
November.
Oh, in November, okay. And they asked for to table it for a
Correct.
while. It's coming back again in February, huh?
I believe it's
Yep.
February.
Okay, but I think the fact that it was tabled at a public meeting of the zoning board makes it so that new notices don't get sent out to the abutters. I believe that's the rule.
I believe I did send them out though, because you stated.
But we asked,
Right.
yeah, I suggested that you send them anyway because it was such an important issue, right, Patty?
Yep, I believe I sent them out last week sometime, so.
I didn't receive the original.
Oh, did you receive the
Well-
one this last week?
No.
He may not technically be in a butter, you know.
Right.
My back lot is right abiding the property.
Really?
Yes.
Patty,
I'm-
would you make a note of that? We'll
unit-
double check that.
Linda got it, and so did Chris, my other neighbor on the other side. I did
Yeah.
not.
What is your address again, Elio?
45 Frederick Street.
I'm sorry about that. We'll try and find out why that happened. So anyway, Attorney Marsh, what do you propose?
Like I said, I think collaboratively, we can try to fix this problem.
Does that mean you and I should go out there with a shovel and clean out the swale, or what are you thinking?
Well, that's not a bad
I
idea.
think it's bigger than the
Speak for
two of us.
yourself, Jim. Speak for yourself.
Sure,
it's
I'm
bigger for-
81, I'll get it.
Well, the issue is more of not necessarily cleaning it. We can't technically clean a private property because it's the portion of the swale that's broken is on D8 Holdings. So we would have to get permission from him to do it.
Bill, how's this? I propose this. You and I get together. I will get you the information I have from Rich Riom, which would be helpful. Maybe a site visit, maybe call for you and I.
Yeah,
And then, maybe, hopefully by the next meeting, we'll be able to present something to the commission.
yeah, I think that makes sense to me. So we could just table this until, what is it, March 1st, Patty? Is that the
Yeah.
next? And then Jim and I will get together and maybe we'll drag Paul along with us and do another visit out there.
Okay.
Does that make sense? We're not gonna do it when it's snowing, though.
No.
Right.
But
I'll
we're supposed
call
to
you.
have high 40s this week, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is the chairman still here, or is he frozen again?
Put me on that list too. I'll go out and take a look at it.
John, you're
Sure.
awfully choppy.
Yeah.
We can't understand you.
Well, he says he wants to come on the site visit, and that's fine.
Okay.
Well,
He
if
said he
we
was
have
going to
more
buy
than-
us lunch after the visit.
So we want to, is there anyone else? who wants to speak to these?
What?
Yep. Nope, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
The proposal is to continue this to March 1st, and the acting conservation agent, that's me, should arrange a site
Right.
visit.
Okay,
with Attorney
we're
Marsh.
I also,
Yeah. So what are we going to do? Table this to March 1st?
Yep. Sorry, Elio.
sorry, I can also mark the surveyor that surveyed my property so he can get the documentation along with that too.
Okay,
Elio, why don't you send that off to me? And then I'll get it over to Bill.
I will do that.
that's good. That's good.
And I'll have this to you this week, Bill, and then we can give each other available times so we can meet out. at the
Okay.
office. Okay,
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you.
all right, thank you.
John, wake up.
Andy, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, sure.
We need a motion to table it to March 1st.
Thanks.
Table.
I'll second that
All
motion
right.
to table this till
So
March.
can I have,
Second,
Patty, you want to call the roll?
Andy Liss,
Yeah, yes.
James Hornsby,
all right.
yes.
Walter
So can I have a
Amorano,
motion to table this to March 1st?
Louis
Yeah.
Ferrera,
Yes.
Can you hear me?
and John Brandt.
Say yes, John.
Say yes, John.
Thank you to the neighbors that spoke, by the way. We
Hello?
appreciate your input.
Yeah,
All right, John, we still can't.
Yes.
Can you switch over to your phone?
Good night, Jim. Good night, Elio.
Thank you.
anyway.
Thank you. Thank you.
John Brandt, can you switch over to your phone, please?
Good night, Linda.
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
night.
1 second. Bye.
We should all chip in to get some better service for John over at the cigar shop. I think that's worthy
yeah.
cause.
I'll
You
give
guys
him,
all need to go back there and buy more cigars.
I'll bring.
You're right.
I think that can be arranged.
Shouldn't be too hard. I'll put my order in.
Okay.
There'll be a surcharge.
Alex, are you there to let him in when he signs in? Thank you.
Patty, is he changing?
He's gonna sign in from his phone like he did the last time and it was clear.
Okay.
Mr. Kenny, when you have a list of dates for the site visit, could you include me on the list just in case I may be available to attend?
I'll do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
All right, everybody wants to go on the site visit.
Why not the whole
Me too.
commission? Why not?
Yeah,
Everybody,
Bill,
everybody. Yeah,
Field trip.
Mr. Kenny, sir,
yes, sir.
the last time we had a joint visit with more than one person who was a member of the Conservation Commission, it turned out that when we have two people or more,
That's
right.
we have a meeting.
That's true.
And we had
Attorney
some,
Hornsby, thank you for reminding me that.
I will not be going.
I will not be
But-
going.
well,
We'll draw
I'd be glad to
straws.
go. I just think we need to state it as a gathering, as a meeting of the Conservation, as an extra meeting, that's all.
Yeah, then
Special
we
meeting.
gotta post it, advertise it and all that stuff. And,
And open to the public.
All right.
Yeah, well, the last time we had public, all right.
Yeah.
we'll work it out. We'll work it out. We'll figure
Okay.
out one way to do this.
But
Bill,
school
just,
committee
send us some
members
selfies,
are
send
not
us some
supposed to
pictures.
Talk to each other between meetings.
Hey, Galton, do you think John has a Tandy TS1000?
It's possible. That would explain a lot.
Yeah.
Well, can we move on without John and let him join in on his phone or?
Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. We still have a quorum here and,
Okay, so do I, okay, so
number one,
what are we
Number
doing now?
one, yep.
request for extension. Wait a minute, do we have a vice chairman here?
I am
Yeah,
here.
it's Andy.
All right, do you have the agenda in front of you?
I do not.
All right, then I'll pretend to be you. Request for extension of order of conditions for South Coast Rail SE 24699. This is fairly simple matter. When the South Coast Rail started its program, they had an order of conditions because they're passing through some areas that are in or near wetlands and buffer zones. And the commission well, I don't know the date. I don't have the file in front of me, but a couple of years ago gave them an order of conditions. And they are looking forward to the fact that that will expire before their work will expire. So they've just wanted to dot all their i's and t's and ask for an extension now to a point in the future. And I don't have the file in front of me, neither does Patty, so I can't tell you what date they wanted to extend it to, but these things are only good for 3 years. So if the commission has no problem with them getting an extension to be more coextensive with the completion of work, I'll figure out the math. So we would need a motion and a vote to grant them their request for an extension to the maximum extent that we can give them an extension.
Let's make that motion then.
What are
I'll
we
second that
extending?
motion.
What are we saying what's the railroad gonna do and why are we extending? I don't understand. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah. What they're asking for is the original order of conditions, which again is, when the Conservation Commission issues an order of conditions, that tells them they can do the work they planned on doing, subject to certain general conditions
Right.
and sometimes some special conditions that we add. And they're doing the work. It's ongoing now, but they anticipate that the order, which is only good for 3 years, is going to expire before the work is completed. So they're asking to extend the order. And there's no reason not to do it. They've done what they're supposed to do, and there are no violations of any conditions that we're aware of so far.
So we can't stop the railroad. Okay.
No.
Well,
Well, I'm opposed to the railroad, you see. That's why I'm
I see.
asking that.
I see.
Uh,
Well, we'll send you to Boston on a bus the next time you need to go.
No,
See
I
how-
bicycle, Bill, usually.
Well, that'll be okay. That'll be all right.
Okay, thank you.
So,
John, are you back?
I'm back, I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
Move approval.
All right, can I have a motion to extend the order?
Already did.
Already did?
you need a second.
I second it.
Second.
Okay, vote. Mr. Hornsby,
Aye.
Andy Liss,
Aye.
James?
Aye again.
Now Galter,
Aye.
and who am I missing?
Louis.
Lewis.
Aye.
Aye for me, vote passes 5-0. Alrighty. Next on the agenda is presentation by city planner, acting conservation agent regarding recommendations for adoption of policy requiring no disturb zones and no build zones, agenda to resource areas under jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay, folks, I want to talk to you about buffer zones a little bit. I'm hoping that you all got the staff memo that I sent out at the end of last week. And the reason that I did this was because, as you know, when we look at a request for an order of conditions, which is basically a permit that we issue to people to do activities that are in wetlands or in the buffer zone adjacent to wetlands, a lot of times you'll see these requests come in and they'll make their presentation and they'll say, in effect, don't worry about a thing that works just in the border, in the buffer zone, just in the buffer, don't worry about a thing. And having observed some of the work that gets done over the past couple of years and starting to do some more research on buffer zones, it turns out that buffer zones have a serious ecological function, and they, to the extent that the buffer zone is degraded, that function is impaired. And to the extent that the function of the buffer zone is impaired, the wetlands have less protection than they would otherwise have. The buffer zone concept is to provide a buffer between harmful activities and the wetlands, and to make sure that they continue to perform their ecological function. And a lot of times, it almost seems to me that the developers presume that the buffer zone is an anything goes zone, that as long as they can come before us and say, well, we know we're within 100 feet of the wetlands, so we need to submit a notice of intent. We need to get an order of conditions so you can tell us what we can do and what we can't do. But don't worry about a thing. It's all in the buffer zone. And I don't think that that's an appropriate presumption for them to make. And I don't think it's an appropriate approach for the board to take. There are things that happen in the buffer zone that can adversely affect the functioning of the wetlands. So I started to do some research on this to see what other cities and towns have done. Part of the research, which I reported in the staff memo, is just to set forth some of the functions that the buffer performs in protecting the wetlands. And the other thing that I learned was that not all wetlands are alike and not all buffer zones are alike. And the restrictions that you might want to put on buffer zone activity could vary according to the soil characteristics of the particular buffer, or to the steepness of the slopes in the buffer area, or to how much vegetation is there currently. And so to some extent, you have to look at these things on a case-by-case basis, so that when a proposal comes before you within a buffer zone, and they tell you, don't worry about a thing, we're just going to put a house in the buffer zone. It's going to be 1 foot from the wetlands, but don't worry because it's in the buffer zone. You might want to think about, there are characteristics of that buffer that would mitigate against approving something like that. Or they might come and say, we're only going to build on 90% of the square footage of the buffer zone. So don't worry about a thing. You've still got 10% to protect the wetlands. You might want to look at the buffer zone and say, in that particular zone, maybe we should really be hoping that they would only use maybe 50% of the zone to work in. And by the way, if they're working in the zone very close to the wetlands, some of these folks, frankly, are going to have 1 foot in the wetlands and 1 foot in the buffer zone when they're going around the back of, say, a house that they're building, and they want to put the foundation in, and the foundation winds up being just in the buffer. But how did you get the heavy equipment around behind there to put it in? Are you really, really close? Or maybe, as I said, maybe you've got 1 foot in the zone, in the wetlands area. So some towns have said, we don't want to have to do a case-by-case review on every single buffer zone. And let's maybe start with a presumption that anything that's done within, say, 25 feet should be a no-touch zone, a no-disturb zone. And a lot of cities and towns, my research has discovered, have taken that approach. So they'll say, we have a wetland here, we have a buffer zone of 100 feet. We're going to make it as a matter of policy, or as a matter of ordinance, or as a matter of zoning. Those are the three ways that it's done. Either the Conservation Commission adopts as a policy, or they have a local wetlands act that includes this as a parameter, or they go to the zoning board and have a zoning change made. And the substance is, within 25 feet of that wetland and parallel to it, wherever it goes, we're going to designate an area for no disturbance at all. Whatever's there, existing foliage or conditions are not going to be touched, because it's so close to the wetlands that in most cases, we're convinced that nothing should happen there. Now, as I said, there are three ways that cities and towns have done this. Some of them actually have, in fact, quite a few communities have a local wetlands protection ordinance or bylaw. Fall River does not have that. The other way to do it is to go to your zoning board of appeals and have them adopt the zoning regulations that would maybe create an overlay district or some kind of a zoning rule that would say that the first 25 feet from the wetland zone is a no disturb zone. We don't have that. So we're left with, what can we do now to establish some protection? And my proposal is what some towns have done. They've said, as a matter of policy, the Conservation Commission will make a determination that our policy is that we don't want anything within 25 feet. We're going to have a no disturb zone. Now, as a policy, you might be able to be flexible in any particular given case. You might look at a particular case and say, because of the slope or the soil conditions or the nature of what's going to be built, we don't have to be really strict on that in this particular case. But the good thing about a policy is that it puts the developer community on notice that if they come before this board and they're building like 2 inches from the wetlands, we're going to look at it very closely, and we're going to probably say, we're not happy with that. Our policy is keep 25 feet away and don't do anything in that no disturb zone. So then the question becomes, if it's just a policy, is it enforceable? And the answer is, it's a policy, so you have some flexibility. If you had a zoning change, there's a clear path to enforce something like that. If you had a local wetlands law ordinance, there would be a clear path to enforce that sort of a rule. When it's a policy, you might have a little trouble. But if you enforce the policy, the developer has the opportunity to go to Mass DEP and appeal your decision. And then we can let them decide. So I'm thinking that's not a bad place to start. I'm thinking that also eventually we should go forward to the city council and maybe suggest that they review the possibility of adopting a local wetlands ordinance, which would give us more teeth enforcement wise. So that's one of the things that I was hoping to suggest to you, is to adopt that as a policy. Also to adopt as a policy or as a procedure, the possibility that in any given case, you might say to a developer, look, we really need more information about this and its impact on the wetlands. So we're going to go out and hire an expert to look at your proposal, and it'll be at your expense, which is not unusual. That we've done that in the past. And we want to know, first of all, when you file your application, you should be aware that we're going to be looking for evidence in your application that what you propose does not significantly impair the proper functioning of the buffer in its role of protecting the wetlands. And we also want you to know that if it's not clear, if we need more information, we may exercise our opportunity to go out and hire an expert at your expense for somebody to come back to us and say, Commission, yes or no, this is something that is going to impair the functioning significantly, or it's not, don't worry about it. But I think we're entitled to have that sort of information. And there was probably something else that I was going to ask you to do, and it's in my staff report. So just to backtrack a bit, the guidebook. I sent you all a copy of Section 3 of that MACC is the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions. They put together an excellent guidebook about buffer zones in general. The piece that I sent you is a listing of the considerations that you should take into account when reviewing a project. And some of it's more applicable to the usual case that we'll see than others, but it's, I think, a very good place to start so that we can be, ask more important questions of developers when they come before us. So that's pretty much what I'm interested in having you move towards. The first to get a vote to adopt these procedures, and also to notify me that I should tell people about it. The whole purpose of this is to put the developers on notice that this is where we're heading. This is what the commission is thinking, and don't come in here with, a proposal that puts a parking garage on the line of the wetlands, because we're probably not going to be happy with it. So, item 1, reviewing projects located in the buffer zone, the commission will, in addition to other sources, be guided by Section 3 of the MACC Buffer Zone Guidebook. Number 2, in reviewing projects located in buffer zones, the commission will require applicants to establish to the commission's satisfaction that proposed work in the zone will not significantly impair the proper functioning of the buffer zone in support of adjoining resource areas, and the commission may require at the applicant's expense a review and determination by an outside expert of whether the proposed activity should or should not be allowed, or should be allowed, or maybe with conditions. And finally, that the commission will establish as a matter of policy a 25-foot no disturb zone, parallel to and 25 feet distant from the boundary of all wetland resource areas, in which natural vegetation will remain undisturbed to the maximum extent possible, and the boundary of which shall be marked with permanent boundary markers. So that's on my shopping list for today. I'd love you to have you vote to adopt all 3 of those. And I think it'll make our job easier, and I think it'll make it clearer to people what to expect when they come to us, and it'll give us some more leverage to protect the wetland areas that we're supposed to watch out for.
So is this something that we can get on the city website as well? Because I think it's
Oh,
really
yes, absolutely. That's part of what I will do to notify folks. We'll put it on the website. We'll get a list of the usual suspects, send them an email telling them that on such and such a date, Fall River Conservation Commission voted as follows, and then they'll know. And then they'll scream, yell, and holler. But no, I mean, I think We're not asking for anything that's unreasonable here. It's within our jurisdiction to deal with these areas, and it's our responsibility to protect the functioning of the wetlands, and the buffer has a much bigger role to play in that than historically has been recognized in this community, I think.
Yeah, I think that this just saves us time in the meetings because we were saying this in the meetings anyway. So I think that this actually saves them the struggle of getting here and then finding out. So they
Right.
can probably just do it right the first time, come to us and have a good plan in place. So great job, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Quick
think we should make this policy, and then I would think about taking it to the city council and having them adopt it as ordinance.
Yeah, there's a lot of work involved in that, and to do it right, I think we should move in that direction. I think we absolutely should ask the council to adopt a local bylaw. And one of the things about, you've got the Wetlands Protection Act, which is the state law that we work under. The reason that most communities adopt a local wetlands ordinance on top of that is because the local regulations can be stricter than what the state imposes. And I should have mentioned, and I didn't, when it comes to buffer zones, there are no performance standards specified by the state act. They don't tell you what you have to do to protect the buffer. Localities, when they adopt wetlands protection ordinances locally, typically go in and fill that gap. And they talk about the buffers in much more extensive detail. But most places that have a local wetlands ordinance are stricter than the state. In fact, that's why they do it, so they can be stricter.
I agree. Yeah.
You look at Fall River, and a lot of people will say, well, it's a pretty much developed city, and there's not a lot of wetlands here. It's not like you're down on Cape Cod or something. But the fact of the matter is, there are a lot of proposals that come before this board that are impacting on the wetlands. And they're out there. I mean, when you look at an aerial view of Fall River, we're almost an island. You've got the Taunton River on one side, and you've got South Watuppa Pond and North Watuppa Pond, and there's a lot of water out there, and there's a lot of wetlands associated with it.
And there are brooks. There are brooks going to all of those.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's a whole arterial network of waterways, and it just doesn't feel that way when you're driving around, but it's there, and we need to watch out to protect it.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to say on this matter?
Yeah, just one question. Bill, does that go effective immediately once we vote, or is there a time frame?
I don't see any reason to delay. I would say effective immediately.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Lewis, you had a question?
I did, yeah. I think Galta kind of alluded to it too. So I'm in favor of the proposals, and especially with the setback, the 25-foot restricted zone. While it's a policy, at least this is the proposal for policy, that would put the onus on the applicant to make a case for it if it were to intrude on a 25-foot restricted zone.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's sort of like a presumption that anything that goes in the 25 feet should not happen, but it's a rebuttable presumption, as we lawyers would say. It's the burden's on the developer to come in and say, no, don't worry about a thing, to talk us into that.
Okay. So I guess we'll make a motion.
So move. I move.
Well, we got to say first.
Okay. Move.
Translational
Sorry,
policy.
my apologies. I'm used to moving approval of a superintendent's recommendation, and I just forgot. Thank you. Sorry, my apologies.
That's okay. The commission is going to adopt a policy of a 25-foot no disturb zone parallel to 25-foot distance from the boundary of all wetland resource areas in which natural vegetation shall remain undisturbed to maximum extent possible, and boundaries of which shall be marked with permanent boundary markers. Can I get a
move approval?
Can I get a second?
I'll
Sure.
second that one.
All righty. Take a vote. Lewis?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Reverend?
Aye.
And Galter?
Aye.
Aye for me. Vote passes 5-0. We'll put that in effect immediately.
Good. And if you could also just move on the other two items, which are the just for public notice that you're going to be guided in part by that handbook, and also that
Right.
you're going to require these petitioners to establish to our satisfaction that that the work in the buffer zone is not going to significantly impair the functioning of the wetlands and so on. As I have, those are points 1 and 2. You read number 3, which is good, but I don't want to walk away without your seal of approval on the first 2 items.
So the first 2 items were,
Which I read, so they're on the record orally tonight.
okay. So can I have a motion to pass the, what Mr. Kenny said earlier?
I'd make a motion to accept the first and second motions as well.
Okay, second?
I'll second both motions.
Okay, a vote, Andy?
Aye.
Galter?
Aye.
Mr. Hornsby?
Aye.
Lewis?
Aye.
Aye for me, vote passes 5-0.
Thanks, guys. I think that this is a big deal for this commission to take some proactive steps like this. It has not happened a lot in the past, and in my experience anyway, and I'm happy to see it.
I agree, yeah. Alrighty, next on the agenda is report by the city planner's acting conservation agent regarding violations at 2450 Indian Town Road.
You're probably tired of hearing me, but just bear with me for another couple of minutes. This is a case that I don't think any of you are familiar with because it arose before any of you were on this board. It arose during my first tour duty here with the city. Mike Labossiere brought to my attention, I want to say this was going back to 2017 sometime, property at 2450 Indian Town Road, major encroachment on the wetlands behind the house. He asked what we could do about it. We found out also that the folks that manage the Endangered Species Program in Massachusetts somehow became aware of this. I'm not sure if we told them or maybe Mike did. There's an endangered, I think it's the spotted salamander. Don't hold me to that because my memory's a little foggy on it. An endangered species habitat behind this house that's been trashed by the filling that's going on. And Mike Labossiere, who is attuned to these things, he's the city forester, I think you all know, thought that this was a pretty egregious violation of wetlands law. And we sent out an enforcement order, and we had a site visit, and somebody came down from the Endangered Species Program. The owner got an engineer involved on his behalf to talk with us about what could be done to restore the wetlands. Then at a certain point in the fall of, I'm going to forget what year, so don't hold me to it, but shortly before I left the service of the city, everything seemed poised for some action to be taken on this. And then reel the tape forward 2.5 years, not a goddamn thing's been done. I was not here to push it along. The woman at the Endangered Species Program who was worried about it was reassigned to another position. So whoever succeeded her did nothing about it. So here we are. And Mike called and said, hey, how about that case on Indian Town Road? Went through, oh, by the way, Mass DEP also, the Lakeville office said, well, we're not really sure we want to get involved. We should have the local corporation council do whatever has to be done. And I understand where they're coming from. They normally, their legal department normally, from my understanding, is more concerned with like major big deal environmental wetlands violations, not so much this, although this is pretty egregious. So anyway, we tried to breathe some life back into this case. And as it turns out, I came back. The woman who was with the Endangered Species Program got reassigned back to the position where it matters to her for this. And Mike is still around. So we talked again to Lakeville, Mass DEP last week, and they said they were going to maybe do a site visit and see if they were going to get involved or not. And so now we're going to make sure they give us a definitive answer really quickly. If they don't, there's a possibility we may have to file suit through the local corporate counsel office here in City Hall. But I don't know exactly which way that's going to go. I will tell you that it's back on track. You didn't know about it, so you didn't know that it was off track, but I'm telling you it's back on track. So if anybody asks you about Indian Town Road, just tell them Bill's working on it. And before he leaves again, he's hoping to get a resolution of it. The problem with this is the homeowner really doesn't have the financial means to go back and do what has to be done. That's part of the problem. You can have a lot of wonderful orders of condition and wetlands laws, but enforcement's another story, and that's where we're at with this. We're going to do what we can. So I just thought you should know that was out there, and we're working on it.
Thank you. I appreciate knowing. Thank you.
Important. Yeah.
I remember that was on the agenda for almost a year. I know we pushed it up Lakeville office, and then somehow it just fell off the agenda after a while. So yeah,
I can't be responsible for what happened over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Why not?
Good to have you back, Bill.
Thank you.
All right. So we don't need to move on any of this. This is just
Nope, just for reporting purposes.
Okay. So I guess we need approval of the minutes, January 4th. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it. Second it.
Okay, vote. Andy?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Hornsby? Myself, aye. Vote passes 5-0. Any public input? Seeing none. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a vote. Andy?
Aye.
Lewis?
Aye.
Coulter?
Aye.
Mr. Hornsby?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.